Everyone wants results, but very few are willing to become the person who earns them. That's what self-discipline is. It's not about forcing yourself to work. It's about transforming into someone who no longer negotiates with weakness. The truth is, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of your habits, your systems, and your mindset. Discipline is what separates people who dream from people who execute. It's the invisible force that shows up when motivation is gone, when comfort is calling, when no one is watching. And it's built in the dark, when you choose structure over impulse, commitment over chaos, and long-term growth over short-term relief. In a world that teaches you to seek pleasure, validation, and ease at every turn, building discipline is a form of rebellion. And those who master it rule themselves. This video will give you the blueprint, 8 raw, psychologically grounded steps to build the kind of discipline that becomes part of your identity. Because once you become that version of yourself, everything else follows. Let's begin. Most people lack discipline not because they're lazy, but because they're emotionally addicted to comfort and mentally conditioned to avoid resistance. From childhood, most are taught to avoid discomfort, to seek pleasure quickly, and to chase external validation, creating a nervous system that associates effort with danger and instant gratification with safety. So every time you try to commit to something, whether it's waking up early, working out, studying, building a business, your brain panics the moment it doesn't feel good. And in that panic, it reaches for the escape, scrolling, eating, quitting, or delaying. Discipline dies in those micro moments when your brain convinces you it's protecting you, but what it's really doing is betraying your potential. The root of this isn't just weak habits, it's a broken relationship with discomfort. You've been taught that you should feel ready before you act, but real discipline means acting especially when you don't feel like it. It means understanding that every time you delay the hard thing, you strengthen the part of you that wants to stay weak. Most people build their lives on emotion and impulse, so their progress is unpredictable, their self-image unstable, and their confidence fragile. True discipline begins the moment you stop letting feelings decide your future. It's when you look your excuses in the eye and choose structure anyway. When you decide that your purpose is more important than your mood, that's where the separation begins. Not between the successful and the unsuccessful, but between those who live with regret and those who live with power. Discipline isn't built in moments of hype, motivation, or applause. It's forged in silence when no one's watching, when nothing exciting is happening, and when your mind is begging for distraction. The world has taught you to chase stimulation, to rely on motivation videos, gym partners, or outside pressure to take action. But real discipline is born when you strip all that away and still move forward. In silence, you come face to face with your own resistance, your self-doubt, your mental noise, and most people run from that. They fill the void with noise because silence exposes their lack of control. But the disciplined mind uses silence as a mirror, a forge, a place where distractions die and intention is all that's left. It's in the quiet mornings when you rise before the world. It's in the lonely gym sessions, the study nights, the long walks with no music. Those are the invisible reps that no one sees but everyone feels. Because while others are performing, you're transforming. You're turning structure into sanctuary. You're detaching from the need to be seen, validated, or rewarded. And that's why discipline outlasts motivation. It doesn't rely on emotion, it relies on decision. The decision to do the thing regardless of how you feel. To become the kind of person who keeps promises to yourself not for attention, but because you respect yourself too much to quit. Every champion, every master, every grounded warrior has one thing in common. They learn to find peace in the silence and power in the repetition. If you can learn to love the grind when it's quiet, you'll own the spotlight when it's loud. Most people fail to build discipline because they confuse routines with rituals. They copy someone else's schedule, follow surface-level habits, and expect lasting change. But real discipline isn't found in doing what works for others. It's found in building rituals that anchor who you are. A routine is something you do. A ritual is something you become. Rituals have meaning, structure, and emotional weight. They aren't just actions, they're identity statements. Waking up early becomes a declaration of control. Cold showers become a baptism of mental clarity. Writing every morning becomes proof that your mind is sharper than your excuses. When you treat your discipline like ritual, It stops being a temporary grind and becomes a sacred commitment to your future self. Rituals create rhythm, and rhythm reprograms the nervous system. Your brain stops negotiating every task and simply accepts that this is who you are now. This is how the disciplined, separate from the impulsive, they no longer rely on motivation because they've restructured their identity around non-negotiables. There's no debate, no waiting for the perfect mood, because the ritual carries its own weight. It becomes part of your story, your structure, your edge. And the more you repeat it, the more deeply it roots into your psychology, until skipping it feels foreign, like breaking a contract with yourself. Ritual is how you turn temporary habits into permanent power. And that's the secret. Discipline isn't built through intensity, it's built through sacred repetition, done with focus, done with presence, and done with meaning. Discipline only becomes unshakable when you stop running from discomfort and start using it as your weapon. The truth is, pain, boredom, frustration, these aren't obstacles, they're fuel. The problem is that most people have been conditioned to believe pain is a signal to stop. They think boredom means the path is wrong, that frustration means they're not cut out for it. But those emotions are part of the process. They're the resistance you push through to earn mental strength. Anyone can be consistent when things feel good, but the ones who rise are those who take the hardest moments and make them sacred. Every time you force yourself to keep going when your body wants rest, when your mind wants distraction, when your emotions want escape, you harden your character. You break through the limitations of who you were and step into who you're becoming. Discomfort is not the enemy, it's the gym where discipline is trained. The person who learns to sit with pain without flinching becomes the person who can lead, dominate, and overcome in any arena. When others break under pressure, you remain still. When others seek pleasure, you seek progress. And every rep in pain, every moment in boredom, every test of your patience, these are the bricks of unshakable self-respect. Because the goal isn't to avoid discomfort, it's to become so resilient that discomfort avoids you. That's what separates the mentally weak from the mentally elite. One sees pain and backs away, the other sees pain and steps forward. You want real discipline? Then stop asking for it to get easier, get stronger. Discipline without direction is just controlled chaos. You might be doing the work, but if you don't have clarity on why, you'll eventually burn out or break down. This is why purpose matters. It's not some fluffy motivational slogan. It's the anchor that holds your discipline in place when storms hit. Without a defined purpose, every setback feels like a sign to quit. Every delay feels like failure, and every temptation feels like a reason to give in. But when you have a purpose that means something to your soul, discipline stops being about sacrifice and starts being about alignment. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" and start saying, "This is who I am." Purpose gives your pain meaning. It transforms routine into mission. And when your actions are aligned with something bigger than ego or appearance, the grind becomes sacred. The days you don't want to show up, you still show up. The moments you feel weak, you remember why you started. Purpose is what keeps the fire alive long after motivation fades. It turns short-term discomfort into long-term elevation. It teaches you that the struggle isn't punishment, it's preparation. Every step you take in service of that deeper mission rewires your mind to crave consistency, not comfort. Most people never build lasting discipline because they never anchor it to anything real. But the moment you define your why, everything changes. You stop drifting, you stop negotiating, you start choosing the hard path, not because it's hard, but because it's yours. That's what makes discipline sustainable. Clarity of purpose and alignment with your identity. The final key to unbreakable discipline is emotional detachment from outcomes. Learning to do the work for the sake of mastery, not applause. The reason so many people lose discipline is because they tie their effort to immediate rewards, external validation, or fast results. And when those don't come, they quit. But the disciplined mind operates differently. It doesn't obsess over whether it's working yet. whether anyone notices or whether the reward is near. It learns to love the repetition, the process, the solitude of doing what must be done, because that's where the real power is, not in what you get, but in who you become while pursuing it. When you stop needing your progress to be loud and start trusting that every quiet effort is shaping your character, you develop an inner stillness that no setback can shake. You train your nervous system to stop chasing highs and to start respecting structure. This is what most people don't understand. Greatness isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the shadows, in the grind no one sees, in the choices no one claps for. And once you learn to find fulfillment in the act itself, not the outcome, you become free. Free from needing praise, free from fearing failure, free from quitting when it gets hard. Discipline becomes your baseline, not your goal. It becomes who you are, not something you force. And when that shift happens, when your power comes from within rather than from results, you become untouchable. You no longer need the world to reward you. You reward yourself every time you follow through. That's how you rise, quiet, focused, relentless. There's a point in every journey where the initial fire fades, where no one's clapping anymore. The results are slower than expected, and doubt creeps in like a whisper in the back of your mind. This is where most people fold, not because they lack talent or resources, but because they mistake boredom and doubt for signs to stop. But discipline is forged in those very moments. The plateau, the quiet stretch, the mundane grind, where your only reward is knowing you didn't quit. This is the hidden phase of transformation, where nothing external validates you and yet you move anyway. Because true discipline isn't about fireworks. It's about showing up on grey days with the same energy you had on day one. The elite don't wait for inspiration. They create momentum. They understand that consistency compounds, and even the tiniest effort, done repeatedly, becomes unstoppable over time. That's how mental giants are made. Not in bursts of glory, but in silent, stubborn persistence. And the deeper your discipline goes, the more untouchable you become. Your power starts to come from the fact that you can outlast anyone, not because you're louder, but because you're still standing when they've all sat down. You become immune to distraction, temptation, and even failure because your identity is no longer built on success. It's built on perseverance. That's the final shift, when your actions aren't dictated by mood or motivation, but by mission. When you don't need fireworks to keep going, just fire in your soul. The final stage of building self-discipline is turning it into a lifestyle, where discipline is no longer something you have to think about, force, or hype yourself up for, but something that flows through your veins like instinct. This only happens when discipline stops being a tactic and becomes a standard, your default mode of operation. And to reach that level, you need three things: identity, environment, and accountability. First, identity. You must see yourself as a disciplined person, not someone trying to be consistent, but someone who is consistent. This rewires your behavior at the root, making it harder to act against discipline than to follow through. Second, your environment must support that identity. Remove friction, remove temptation, remove access to weakness. If your surroundings don't reflect your mission, your habits will always be fighting upstream. Third, accountability. Not just to others, but to your future self. Every time you skip a workout, break a promise, or hit snooze, you're not just delaying progress, you're betraying who you told yourself you'd become. That sting of regret, it adds up. But so does every act of follow-through. Every time you stay disciplined, you make future discipline easier. The wiring gets stronger, the standard gets higher, until one day you wake up and realize you don't need motivation, you don't need reminders, you don't even need rewards. You are the reward. The kind of person who follows through, even when no one's watching. The kind of person who earns respect, first from within. That's when discipline becomes freedom. Not restriction, not suffering, freedom. The freedom to know you can trust yourself. And once you have that, there's nothing you can't build. If you want to build a life most people can't touch, you need to become someone most people aren't willing to be. Disciplined, focused, and anchored in purpose. Not just for a week, not just when it's easy, but for life. Discipline isn't about being perfect, it's about being unstoppable. about showing up when it's hard, following through when it's boring, and choosing your future over your feelings every single time. If this message resonated with you, if you're done living at half power and ready to step into full control, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment about what hit the hardest, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. This is the Stoic Knight. Build your edge, master your mind, and never fold.